Hi, you are watching True Told Stories, where real life and moments are told with care and honesty. Thank you for being here. The story starts now.
There are some people who never quite fit into the world as we know it. Not because they resist it, but because they were born with a heart too free, a mind too wild, and a spirit too untouched. This is the story of one such boy from a small village in Nagaland. He didn't speak like others. He didn't behave like others. But what he did, entirely by accident and entirely out of innocence, changed the fate of his family forever. To the villagers, he was always the happy one, a teenage boy who acted like a child and wandered freely without understanding rules or routine. Though he had grown up in age, his behavior never matured. He laughed at simple things, played with the youngest of children, and sang loudly in the streets, mixing real songs with his own made-up words. His family, humble farmers, had long come to accept that he was different. They loved him deeply, even as they struggled to care for him alongside their daily hardships in the fields. It was a life of repetition. Every day, they brought him home, cleaned him, fed him, only for him to wander out again. But they weren't alone in raising him. The villagers often saw him running barefoot, his clothes dirty, sometimes even wet. He would urinate in his pants without shame, and on some days, he would soil himself without realizing. He didn't understand what was wrong. He didn't mean to cause trouble. To him, the world was simple: smile, play, sing, and live freely. Sometimes, elders would gently scold him. "Io, you again. Go home, your mother is worried," they would say, shooing him off. But no one ever hurt him. No one raised their voice in anger. Because everyone knew he was born this way. He wasn't a threat. He wasn't cruel. In fact, he was one of the kindest souls in the village. He never hit anyone. He never used bad language. He didn't gossip. He had no jealousy, no ego, no hatred. He was just pure. His family tried their best. Whenever he came home dirty, they would clean him up, change his clothes, and try to keep him indoors. But he always escaped, giggling like a child who had stolen candy. He loved to play with the kids. They were his equals in his mind. He would chase them, laugh with them, sing silly songs. The children didn't mind. They grew up seeing him like a playful uncle. One who never got angry, never judged, and was always happy to join in their games. And it wasn't just the kids who enjoyed his company. The elders, too, had made peace with his presence. Some would even tease him lovingly. From the tops of their windows or balconies, they would shout his name, asking him, "Where are you going today, young man? What's the big plan?" He would shout back, burst into laughter, and mumble something completely incoherent. A mix of real words and his own invention. But the villagers played along. "Ah, yes, yes. Good idea," the elders would reply, pretending to understand every word. Others sang along when he broke into song. Some women from nearby houses would invite him to sit while they pounded rice or cleaned vegetables. They offered him water, tea, sticky rice cake, or sweet potato. The village protected him as one of their own. He wasn't an only child. In fact, he had younger siblings. 2 brothers and a sister. All of whom loved him dearly. Despite being younger, they had accepted the role of caretakers from a young age. They didn't complain. When he soiled himself, they helped their mother clean him. When he ran off into the forest or wandered too far, they would chase after him, holding his hand on the way back. "Come on, big brother," they would tease, "don't make us run again today." Sometimes, he would point to the clouds, try to explain something only he could see. His sister would nod seriously, play along, and say, "Oh yes, I see it too. That's a cotton cloud, isn't it?" He would clap and laugh, delighted that someone understood his world. Though they were poor, their home was rich with care. There was no embarrassment in loving him. His siblings would feed him when he didn't eat, distract him when he threw tantrums, and hug him when he cried. even if they didn't know why. Their parents, despite the backbreaking work in the fields, raised all four of them with honesty, faith, and a sense of responsibility that the village admired. No one called him a burden. He was their joy. He was the soul of the house. It was an ordinary morning. The villagers, like always, packed their tools and walked to the fields. Only the elderly, sick, and a few others remained behind. The boy, now in his teenage years, as usual, wandered the village paths. He danced a little near the trees, sang to himself, and then walked up the road that led to the highway. And then it happened. A vehicle passed him at high speed. As it zoomed past, something dropped out of it. A black suitcase. The boy, curious as ever, walked to it. He looked around. No one was there. He picked it up. It was heavy. He shouted, waving toward the road. "Hey! Hey! Hey!" But the vehicle was gone. He did what he always did when he found something interesting. He brought it home. His parents, tired from the fields, returned later that day. He met them at the gate with his usual big smile and said something about a bag. When they saw it, their hearts skipped a beat. They opened the suitcase and gasped. It was full of money. They didn't count it right away. Fear and confusion filled their minds. What if someone came looking? What if it was stolen? What if they were blamed? They wrapped the suitcase in cloth and traveled to Kohima the very next day. It was a long journey. They didn't have a vehicle, so they took help from a neighbor who offered a ride in his old Jeep. At the police station, they explained everything. How their mentally challenged son had found the suitcase and brought it home. The officers were shocked at their honesty. No one in the room could believe that a family so poor, with a special child to care for, would walk into a police station and surrender what looked like a fortune. The police accepted the suitcase and promised to investigate. The story was printed in the local newspapers and announced on the radio. But no one ever came forward to claim it. Weeks passed. Then months. And according to the law, after a certain waiting period, the ownership of unclaimed property legally passed to the finder. The suitcase and the fortune it held was returned to the boy's family. With the money, everything changed. They fixed their leaking roof. They bought livestock. They paid off their debts. They sent the younger siblings to better schools. Their land, once dry and cracked, was now nurtured with care. They even helped their relatives and neighbors. But what never changed was the boy himself. He still wandered around. Still sang loudly. Still got messy and needed help every day. And yet now, he walked in clothes that were clean, his feet no longer bare. His family had more help, more peace. The villagers would look at him and smile. Look at him, they'd say. He doesn't even know. He doesn't even understand what he did. But everyone else did. Even today, villagers, young and old, speak of him with awe. They say he is truly blessed. Some say he was chosen. Others say it was God's way of showing that those with the purest hearts are watched over. Parents tell their children his story. Teachers use him as an example of honesty. The village elders remind everyone, don't laugh at people like him. They may look simple, but they're closer to heaven than we are. Many even believe that the boy's innocence brought that fortune. That divine hands led him to the suitcase. He became a symbol. Not of luck, but of purity, grace, and the hidden ways of the universe. Years have passed. The boy is now a man. He still cannot express himself like others. He still hums to himself, plays with children, and forgets where he's going halfway there. But he's happy. His siblings are grown up now. One works in the city. One runs a small shop. The sister is a teacher. But they still return home often. And they still take care of him, just as they always did. Their house stands proudly at the edge of the village. Not grand, but strong. And in its heart is still that boy. The same smile. The same spirit. If you ask anyone in the village about him, they will say, he is the reason his family is where they are now. He is the blessing in disguise. And if you visit, you might hear someone shouting from a window. Where are you going today, hero? He will turn, grin, and shout something incomprehensible. And the village, as always, will reply. Ah, very good. Don't forget to sing for us. This is not just the story of a suitcase full of money. It's the story of how a boy, overlooked by the world, reminded a village. And now, perhaps all of us. That kindness, innocence, and love are the truest forms of wealth. He may never know the impact he made. But everyone else does. In a world chasing success, he simply lived with joy. And in doing so, he left behind a legacy richer than gold.
That's it for today's story. Thank you for being here. If this story touched you, like, share, or just leave a kind word below. And if you have a story on your own, you can DM me on Instagram at True Told Stories. With love, this is True Told Stories. See you again soon.